evening, and welcome to Friday Night Film Noir. Tonight's presentation is the movie Impact. It was directed in 1949, directed by Arthur Lubin, stars Brian Dunleavy, Ella Raines, Helen Walker, and Charles Coburn, to name a few. I love Charles Coburn. Here is the plot. An unfaithful wife's murder plot with her lover kills the lover instead of the husband instead. Her presumed dead husband hides out to let her face the criminal consequences. Here are some notes. It's based on a story by film noir writer Jay Dratler, and it was filmed in Northern California. In 2013, movie critic Gary W. Tusi praised the movie as a quintessential B film. Quote, "As far as modest film noirs go, this is one of the best. A simple plot idea is twisted to the max for late 1940s audiences." Unquote. So, let's get into what this movie's all about. It's time for spoilers. Powerhouse millionaire industrialist Walt Williams gets his board of directors to bend to his will without ever breaking a sweat. He has a beautiful young wife, Irene, and a seemingly perfect life in San Francisco. Walt has business in Denver, and Irene accepts his invitation to go along. However, at the last moment, she gets sick, then asks him instead to give a ride to her poor cousin hitchhiking his way home to Evanston, Illinois. The cousin is actually her lover, Jim Torrance. On a deserted roadside high in the Sierras, Torrance executes their murder plan, striking Walt directly on the head with the lug wrench, and then rolling his body down a steep embankment. Spooked by two moving van attendants stopping their truck to offer assistance, he races off wildly in Walt's roadster, straight into a head-on collision with a gasoline tanker. Meanwhile, Irene leaves for a rendezvous with Terrence at a hotel in Oakland, booked under the assumed names of Mr. and Mrs. Jack Burns. But he never shows. Bloodied and badly shaken, Walt comes to before the moving van leaves. He manages to crawl onto his open tailgate before passing out. The next morning, he slips out of the van unseen and sees a newspaper announcing his demise. He ends up in a small town of Larkspur, Idaho. A skilled mechanic, he immediately gets a job at a local service station owned by Marcia Peters, a young war widow. Back in San Francisco, police detective Quincy starts piecing together evidence against Irene. She is arrested as an accomplice in her husband's killing, potentially facing the death penalty if the actual perpetrator, Torrance, cannot be found. Walt enjoys life recovering in Larkspur, but follows developments in San Francisco. 3 months pass. Swayed by Marcia's kindness and evident love for him, he eventually tells her the truth. She convinces him they will never have a future together unless he goes back and clears Irene. When he does, Irene, a consummate liar throughout, sees an opportunity and effortlessly turns the tables on Walt, accusing him of planning the entire thing to murder both her and Torrance. The district attorney believes her, and she is released, and Walt ends up on trial for his life. Desperate, Marcia turns to Quincy, who has harbored doubts and is open to helping her clear Walt. Nothing they produce can turn the tide until Sue Lynn, Walt's former housekeeper, is found. She leads the pair to a hotel key Irene left in a jacket pocket in her apartment, which takes them to Torrance's suitcase, still checked at the Oakland hotel, revealing his Jack Burns alias. Walter is freed, and Irene is rearrested. Excellent, excellent film noir. So before we get to my opinions of the film, let me tell you what my favorite quote of the movie was. Quote from Sue Lin Chung: "Much sorrow comes from women who know not honor and truth." Unquote. Now, for my personal thoughts about this film, I love the sets and the scenery in this film. This cheating wife is very clever, very suspenseful, and the acting is superb. Never a dull moment. I like the idea that a simple monogram holds so much fate in this story. It broke my heart when Softy cries when he discovers he'd been the sucker who was supposed to die. Favorite quote from the film, quote, "Holy St. Valentine's Day," unquote. The wardrobes in this film are stunning. Charles Coburn is my favorite character in this. I love how this film shows a woman in the 40s doing a man's job for that time period. The bits of comedy that are thrown in are perfect. I was so into this film, I couldn't stop watching. Highly recommended. That's going to do it for this evening's Film Noir. Thank you so much for watching. I am Miss La-Di-Da, and stay tuned next Friday for another episode of Friday Night Presents.
No. He's looking at you, kid.